Hey, agents, we are a little bit late today because we just could not shut up on our other channel. So if you want to watch today's Facebook Live, go to either Danielle's profile or mine and friend us while you're there. We love to connect with other agents, and making real estate better is what we're all about. So that's what we're here for today. And today we are talking about what, Danielle?
What to expect when submitting an offer, and the big kind of 4 or 5 things that you need to know and figure out before you write something up. So obviously the big one was price. And what we tried to drive home is that their gut feeling as far as wanting a deal is not gonna cut it. It's not going to allow them to buy a house. And that's what they need. We need to remind our buyers that that's the end goal. There are people, there are cultures that's about something else. It's all about the deal. It's all about a percentage off. It's all about feeling like they won something over somebody else. And really that's not our, and people talk about negotiation skills. Negotiation skills in other fields.
I spend 98% of my negotiation time negotiating with my own client. That's where my massive negotiation skills come in, especially in this market.
Absolutely.
It used to be that we negotiated with sellers, and that was a process that was part of what we did with every buyer. I haven't negotiated with a seller in 2 or 3 years. I don't think. Maybe once or twice, but we're just trying to beat all those other buyers in this recent market. So our buyers are the ones that we have to negotiate with. And by negotiate, we mean help them understand what's in their best interest, what they really want, because a lot of times they don't even understand what they really want.
Correct.
We have buyers who get stuck on a price, who Danielle and I were talking about the old rule of thumb. Do we offer 5% under? Do we offer 10% under? No, not if you want a house.
Well, no, if we are providing a market report for you and the market is saying that or the report is saying that it's priced right. Yes, there might be situations where there are houses that are 10% too high or 5% too high. But quite honestly, with this little bit of, the market that we are still seeing for the most part in our area is still a small amount of inventory. So maybe that 10% is high, but maybe they're shooting because there's literally nothing else. And you have to go with it. If you're a serious buyer, yes, of course, don't get into something you're comfortable with. We're never, ever, ever trying to get our clients to get into something that they're not comfortable with. Luckily, Ruth and I did not have the situation in these last couple of years where we're giving money away and we're giving inspections away and things like that, like other areas of the United States kind of saw happening. But so it's all about protecting them. But at the same time, just because it's their gut feeling doesn't necessarily
right. And they get much more comfortable once they understand it. They feel like, they're hearing things from their parents, they're hearing things from siblings, they're hearing things from people who bought a house 10 years ago. And they are confused, and they're not, it takes them a while to understand who's really on their side. Hopefully, we have lots of conversations with our buyers, and they do trust us, but that's all part of what we as agents need to attain. And once we get that trust, then it's up to us to, treat that very sacredly. So helping them understand what the right price is the beginning of it, helping them be comfortable with that, helping them understand what it means in a multiple offer situation and who you have to beat and how you have to beat them. The sentence I use over and over again, and I know I sound like a broken record, which you kids don't even know what a broken record is, but it used to skip and it would go over and over again and I'd say the same thing. But I tell them the same thing in every situation. This also helps if you're in a market that does dual agency and you don't know how to counsel your buyers. The answer is, in a multiple offer situation, you go to the point where you're okay if you lose it. If that's full price and somebody gets it for full price plus $1, are you okay with that? As long as you do that, you're going to win. You might lose some houses, but you lost them under your terms and you're okay with that. But buyers often think that they get to set the price, that they get to decide what they want for their budget. They can decide what they want, but they can't decide that that exists in the real world. So our job is to help them with that pricing. And then agents, don't get stuck on your CMA being the last word on value. If there are 20 offers on a property, the value is there. The market said so. So Absolutely. Don't say, I know it's listed for 300, but my CMA says 3025. Well, your CMA is wrong because the market just spoke.
Absolutely. And again, you got to take into consideration, I'm talking two different ways. I'm representing a buyer on one of my sales, and I pretty much, dual agency, I have to step back, but I had to explain to him there are 68 houses in their town for sale that are 3 and 4 bedrooms. That is a lot of houses. And whereas in all of Plano, I don't think there's 7 active houses right now. Maybe there's a couple that went on sale today, but because it's the weekend. But come next Tuesday or Wednesday, if we have 8 move-in ready houses, that's a lot right now, unless it's new construction, but you know what I'm saying. So we're talking town to town, not that it's right next door, but they're in my area that I cover. And there's one that is just oversaturated and there's others. So
we need to know it. Buyers, agents need to understand the market. We need to understand pricing, and we need to be able to explain it to our clients so that they're comfortable with it. Because if they're not comfortable with it, this is where the lawsuits come from. This is where your unhappy customers come from. This is where people turn to their friends in a year and say, well, my realtor told me that, blah, 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 blah. Be careful what you say. Make sure it's true. Make sure you really know what you're talking about. Do not make guesses about where the market's going and risk somebody else's money on it. Help somebody understand what the market really is, the decision they're making, and help them feel good about making the right decision. That's our sacred duty. I'm going to use the word again because I think it's so important.
Yeah. Well,
so what's the next thing? Earnest money? That's different everywhere. So if you're someplace else, is it earnest money? Did I say it?
Earnest money.
So if you're someplace else, our earnest money rules won't apply to you, but make sure you know what they are and make sure you know when it's at risk. In our market, with our contract, earnest money is rarely at risk for a buyer. They have to murder somebody.
They basically have to go, I've changed my mind.
After everything else is done.
Go, nah, it's okay.
So really hard.
Usually there's some sort of way, sometimes people will
get the lender to say they're denied now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is fraud, but happens.
What's a little fraud between people who can make
when
money?
You need a deal.
Yeah, right. Ooh, yuck. So we have earnest money, we have the price, then we have closing date. We spent a lot of time explaining that there's a lot of factors that go into it. Sometimes it's what the buyers need. Sometimes it's, especially in this area, this time with the low inventory, it's what the sellers need. Do the sellers need a little extra time? Do the sellers need a rent back? Do we need to push, closing off? Is there, again, I have a town that has a inspection that they have to do. And I, represent the sellers, and we're not allowed to have that inspection until there's an offer. So now that there's an offer, we can finally have the city in. Is it going to take 3 days, or is it going to take 4.5 weeks before the city can come in? Again, with 68 houses on the market, who knows, how busy they are. So knowing those type of things and explaining those explaining that to the buyers. And we also wanted to explain, because everybody wants to, save every dime they can, which we totally understand, but buying a house costs money.
And sometimes the decision they make actually ends up costing more than if they had done it differently.
Correct.
Because they didn't, they wanted everything to line up perfectly.
Right. Right. So there might be a holding overnight of a truck with your stuff in it, and there might be a hotel room. And it, if you're a seller or a buyer, I mean, really depending on when you're, done, maybe they're renting somewhere and have to be out at the end of the month. And for some reason they chose the 30th to close on their house, or maybe it got pushed back to the 30th and they had to be out the 30th and walking around. Well, those things happen. So again, knowing all these things, trying to manage expectations. That's my favorite.
And also, whatever is the norm in your area. So in our area, possession happens at closing. As soon as the paperwork is signed and the deal is funded, which happens all within, an hour or two typically, the keys are handed over to the buyer and they own the house and have possession. We know that there are places across the country where that's not true.
Right.
Where sometimes sellers have, 3 or 4 days or a week to vacate, which is bizarre to me how you're living in someone else's house. But
yes,
but they do. And that gives them a lot more cushion than we have here.
Absolutely.
So if that's how it is in your area, then you need to know those things, and you need to know, because buyers and sellers have their own expectations. We need to tell them what the reality is, and we need to tell them well ahead of time so that they can understand and, again, feel comfortable about it. It's all about setting expectations. That's what's going to make clients comfortable with you as a realtor. That's what's going to make them refer you to their friends and family. That's what's going to make them use you again. And so it's really important not to let any of this go, or say, oh, I thought they knew what it was, or I thought the lender explained that, or the attorney. Over-explain.
Right. Absolutely. And then we also kind of talked about as is. So again, as we were talking about, Ruth and I, it's a line item, or it's a paragraph on our contract that can be signed. And sometimes people get a little too bent out of shape about what that actually means. And in our case, our contracts straight out explain what an inspection can and cannot do. They can't be asking about trim or a crack in the sidewalk or things like that. That is not the same. That's not what is included when we say you can have an inspection, and this is contingent on that inspection. So we try to outline that, because again, buyers are like, I don't want to sign as is, which makes sense, but they also sometimes want to nickel and dime everything. Whereas sellers are like, I don't want to put another dime in there. Okay, right. But if there's a major mechanical problem or major problem found in the inspection, you're in our, again, disclosures. We have disclosures that list out 25, 26 different things. And some of them are about being aware of material defects in the foundation and in with the systems in the house and the windows and things like that. So if that comes up, if you don't handle it, if the buyers don't handle, if the sellers don't handle it, we're going back on the market and we're changing the disclosures, which guess what? The next buyer is going to double whatever it is. If it was a $10,000 fix, they're going to go, oh, that's probably 20 grand. And they're going to offer a lot less.
Yeah. And that buyer's going to assume that the last buyer walked away because of it.
Correct.
And so they're going to say, well, if that buyer was afraid of it, then I'm afraid of it too.
Correct.
And so it's going to take a lot of money to remedy.
Absolutely. So, and again, this all comes down to us, that's why we're so important, is to explain the pitfalls and the scenarios and the whys in the house and the it's and the, all the good stuff. So, which is why we're saying this is how we have to be prepared for an offer beforehand, of what this all means and why they, as is makes sense or doesn't, or it doesn't even really matter. Again, I don't think it does because if we tell our clients, our buyers correctly and manage their expectations.
Well, that's the problem though, isn't it? Because so many non-as-is offers come in with a laundry list of ridiculous items. And what they really want is $500 or some nonsense. You're buying a house worth a couple $100,000 and you need to have, the seller pull another 500 out of their pocket for you.
Well, quite honestly, again, if they're being told the pitfalls of that, the seller can go, done, I'm out.
Absolutely.
And I've had that too.
Oh,
where
yes.
my seller went, done, canceled. And
the buyer goes,
wait, what? No.
Or the buyer's agent, who ought to know better.
Yes.
Who
You're renegotiating.
should have educated her buyers, is saying, but we just asked for, it's health and safety. It's blah, blah, blah. Stop with the health and safety. If the house is not going to burn down and it's not a significant amount of money, you're not getting it as from an inspection,
right,
in a market where sellers have any strength whatsoever.
Right.
And I hate as the market, all markets turn. So it's going to happen at some point. Don't know when.
Yes.
When the market turns back to buyers, when we start seeing that again, I don't know. I'm done with real estate, because that was awful. Buyers raking sellers over the coals for typical homeowner maintenance items that, they needed to do again the next year.
Right.
Or they got their $500 and never got the thing fixed.
Never looked at it again. Forgot it was even an issue.
Yeah, it reminds me of when my mom backed out of the driveway and dinged her neighbor's car, and he insisted on an amount of money that she paid him, and then he never got the car fixed and parked it across the street from her house every single day with the same little dent in it that he had demanded hundreds of dollars for.
Blech.
So if you're going to be like that, Mr. Abelson, we don't want to talk to you.
Right. Absolutely. And then last thing we mentioned was the fact that basically we do live in an attorney state, or an area that uses attorneys. And so once it's signed, once the paperwork is signed, it is a contract. And Ruth and I and the other agent and the lender and all these other people can't do anything to change it. So that's why we have to have our attorneys ready and known at the time, before the offer. Because if you're trying to now call clients, or you're now trying to call attorneys, and I'm sitting there waiting to, put in an offer because I need the attorney in there. Because once everything's signed, again, it's a contract, and it needs somebody to officially modify it, even if it's to cancel it. They want to be represented right away. So we had talked about this weeks ago, about putting a team together before, all of these processes start. And this is just hitting home that, we can't be twiddling our thumbs and calling people and seeing if you can save $150.
Yeah. And if you're not in a area that uses attorneys, then you have a closer relationship with a title company, who we don't typically have close relationships with.
No.
So that's who you need to, build your relationship with, and know that you can trust them, and know that they're going to do their job and make you look like a rock star and take care of your clients and get them to closing.
Absolutely.
So make a comment if you'd like, and we will see you next week on Putting the Real in Real Estate.
Have a good one.